live?
Give it a couple minutes. Oh wait, it says. Yeah, we're up.
Sweet. Hang on. 2 seconds. Oh yeah, let me turn off the TV. Nice. Pop out the chat. Alright. Okay. Let me just make sure my levels are good. Looks good. Say something?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's good. Alright. Here for the first annual Mavericks versus Houston debate. Think okay, so we're gonna be doing best finals run between Houston and Dallas. Obviously, as you can see, I'll be taking Dallas. Ian's going to be taking Houston. And Ian's giving me the option to go first. Is that correct?
Yep. Let's
All right.
do it.
Okay. So, oh yeah, let me get my timer on. We'll do like, I guess, 3 rounds, 4 minutes, like last time. And then we could just debate or talk.
All right.
Still got the 4 minutes ready. Okay, go. All right, first thing I'm going to do here is, well, first remember that this is a debate about which was more impressive, correct? Not who had the better team or anything like that, but which was more impressive. Right. First thing I'm going to do is attack the 6th seed. I think Ian picked the 95 season because the Rockets were the 6th seed, right? So I'm going to have to try to dismantle that a little bit. On paper, the 6th seed is impressive, correct? I think people look at that and they say, "Wow, that's got to be the best run ever, 6th seed to win." That essentially has never happened before, something of that nature, right? I know Miami 8th seed made it this year. That was a crazy run, but in terms of actually winning it, I think that's the lowest seed of all time. It's a little bit of fool's gold, okay? So let's keep in mind. Let's keep in mind Houston won the year before. Okay, these are not scrubs. This is not some fairy tale story where they proved everyone wrong or something like that. They were defending champions. The exact same roster, essentially. With about 35 games to go, they trade for Clyde Drexler for Otis Thorpe, so they get another 50 greatest, another all-star on their team. And again, trading Clyde Drexler for Otis Thorpe, anyone would take that 99 times out of 100, right? 100 times out of 100. Before the preseason, they were second in terms of odds to win it all again. They were plus 450. I think the Suns were the favorite at plus 350. And there were some other teams tied with them at second, right? So again, this is not surprising anyone that they were a good team, right? They go 6-0 to start the season, and then essentially they go like 500 the rest of the way, right? And Akeem Olajuwon was only hurt for 10 games, so again, that's not a huge deal. The rest of their lineup remained healthy, right? My main argument here is that the Rockets should not get extra credit for struggling and then playing as they should, correct? That's essentially what I'm trying to get at. And the fact that they were preseason essentially odds-on favorites, tied second, right behind Phoenix, right? They were odds-on favorites to start the year. They then make maybe one of the best trades in NBA history. They get Clyde Drexler. They send Thorpe and a first-round pick essentially for Drexler. And I mean, essentially, just looking at that, whenever you say that, it puts the 6th seed into context, right? This was a good team, a great team, a defending championship team with the reigning MVP. Clyde Drexler, a 7-time All-Star coming into the year. He'd be an All-Star 2 years after that as well. We're talking about their best players being in their prime, championship experience. They arguably have the best player in the world that was in the NBA at that time. This is not a typical 6th seed. Further, I went back and tried to look up some historical betting lines for reference, right? I could not find a closer 6-3 matchup than what the Utah Jazz and Houston Rockets had in 1995. I found one, and you know when it was? 2011, the Mavs were barely favored to beat the Portland Trailblazers. That's how much the Mavs were still doubted as a 3rd seed. So again, as far as I'm aware, yes, you guys, I'll go ahead and tell you, you guys were underdogs the whole way, but barely. We're talking like plus 200 odds. And when you got to the finals, it was only like plus 130 or something like that, which is essentially a coin flip, really, because it's plus 110, minus 110, right, for Vegas odds. So essentially it was a coin flip for the most part. And with that being said, yeah, the 6th seed that the Rockets had was not a typical 6th seed. You can go ahead.
All right, let me get my timer here.
I think I might have been too loud on that, but that's okay.
All right, so even though you did attack the 6th seed, I'm still going to tell you all the great things the Rockets did during that run. And yeah, they don't get extra credit for, not being good in the regular season, but they did have to defeat the odds-on favorite in Phoenix. And I think after the year started, though, like maybe the Rockets, yeah, they were defending champs, but after the year started, I think it might have been maybe, the Spurs were the favorite when the playoffs started, or maybe still the Suns. They were still pretty good.
Spurs
or
were
maybe
the 1 seed.
Orlando was number 1 seed in the East. So I think when the playoffs started, I don't think anyone was picking the Rockets. And like you mentioned, they are the lowest seed ever to win a finals. Of all the champions in NBA history, they're the only team to win from the 6th seed. They beat in succession 60-win Utah, 59-win Phoenix, 62-win San Antonio, and 57-win Orlando Magic, all without home court. No championship team in history has beaten 4 teams with that collective win total. And then when you compare it, we're looking here like which run is more impressive, right? The average win for the opponents of the Rockets in the playoffs, 59.5. For the Mavs, 54.5. The average opponent seed for the Rockets is 1.75. Average opponent seed to the Mavs, 3.5. And I even went to the All-NBA teams. Opponents on the All-NBA first team that the Rockets faced, 4-3 for the Mavs, and that includes Eastern Conference as well. Well, All-NBA first team, yeah. Cumulative All-NBA teams pretty close. 7 out of 13 available because I think Olajuwon was on one of the teams. 7-14 for the Mavs. Let's see what else we got here. All-NBA defensive team, 40% of them the Rockets faced. Opponent MVP race that year, 1995. 7 of the top 12 players in that the Rockets faced in that playoff run. 7 of the 12 best players in 95. And might be surprising to note, Dennis Rodman, number 12. Who saw that coming?
For what again?
In an MVP race.
Oh.
In 95. I would have never thought Rodman got that high.
He got like 18 rebounds or something crazy that year.
Yeah. And so the Rockets had... Oh, your camera went on.
No, I know. I was restarting.
All right. So, yeah, MVP... of the top 12 MVP players in 95, the Rockets faced 7. The Mavs only faced 4. And I believe... What, were 2 of those on the same team in the Heat?
MVPs?
Yeah, maybe Wade and
Harden,
LeBron.
Durant, Westbrook, Kobe, LeBron.
In 2011, not in 20.
Well, I'm just saying.
Harden wasn't an MVP race in 2011. I got it here. I'll get to that in a second. I'm just giving a little overview of this stuff I'm going to delve into. See, the Mavs' top 3... I got it right here. The MVP, the Rockets faced the league MVP in Robinson, number 2 and number 3 on the list. The Mavs' top 3 in the MVP race were 3, 4, and 5. So the Rockets faced 1, 2, and 3. The Mavs faced 3, 4, and 5. And the Rockets destroyed the MVP. Made them look silly. The Mavs didn't even get to play the first or second place MVP. I'm not even sure what Derrick Rose did that year. And I'm just gonna end on this. Michael Jordan was in the league when the Rockets
I knew
won.
you were going to say that.
I had to crowbar it in. I had to get it in somehow.
That's all right. I knew you were going to say that. That's all right. All right, so glad you brought up who we played. I'm about to dive into that. But again, I want to address the win totals. Again, because you guys struggled, right? And you're a lesser seed playing higher seeded teams. Again, I don't really see that as fair, right? You don't get extra credit because you guys didn't play as good as you should, so you played tougher teams. If you take Portland out of it, right? Portland essentially, if you take their win totals out of the average, they're essentially the same. It's like the same across the board. Further, the Heat were the favorite that year. We beat them. The Lakers were the second favorite. We beat them. They were the back-to-back champions. We swept them. And further, like when you really dive into who you guys beat, again, Barkley never won a ring. Malone and Stockton never won a ring. Shaq was definitely baby Shaq, only his third year. Penny Hardaway was only his second year. Robinson won his first MVP, I believe, that year. He would not win until Duncan got there. Again, the guys, I mean, on paper, yes, you guys that you played are very good, right? But if we want to take Kobe, we want to take LeBron James, that's already the two best players out of any crop that either of us played. Secondly, when you look at who we beat guys who would either go on to be eventual MVPs or already were MVPs. We beat guys who were already champions or would actually become champions. And so the hardware or the collective hardware of the players that we beat, I don't think is really even close. Secondly, do you know what the preseason odds were for the Mavs to win in 2011?
No.
Plus
I would guess
2,000.
not very good.
The second greatest odds ever, besides the 2014-2015 Warriors, in terms of preseason odds that a team ever won to start the season. Again, Caron Butler goes down a third of the way through the season, right? Again, you guys don't really have an excuse for why you struggled. You just struggled. Mavs overcame way more adversity. Dirk was also hurt for about 10 games. So was Tyson Chandler. Again, Caron Butler was probably our second best overall player when he got hurt a third of the way into the season. We overcame that. And then we look at like who we played, right? The first round. Again, we only have one All-Star. You guys have two. So as much as you say these other guys we played, remember you had two All-Stars. We only had one. We really had no one even close to being an All-Star on our team either. The year before, a kid was an All-Star, but he averaged like 10, 8, and 5. 10 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, right? Again, I think it was a little bit of like a popular vote. It wasn't really based on what he did, right? And the Mavericks had a good record the year before, so I think that's also why he might have gotten in. We played Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge in the first round. Two All-Stars. LaMarcus Aldridge would go on to be an All-Star 7 of the 8 next years. Brandon Roy was an All-Star the 3 years prior. And they both balled out during the season, the playoff series. They both played very well. We go to the second round, back-to-back champions, MVP, several All-Stars on that team as well. The third round, that was LA. And then we play Oklahoma City, several All-Stars. Kevin Durant leads the league in scoring that year. He would go on to also be an MVP. And by the way, all of these guys we beat were in their prime, correct? And the guys that you had on your team were also in their prime. We had a bunch of older guys who had not been good for 5+ years, besides Dirk, and maybe Jason Terry or something like that. But if we're going to go to Jason Terry, you're already dipping down to the bottom of the barrel, right, to compare teams. We then go on to the odds-on favorite that year, the Miami Heat. And by the way, we overcame the biggest single playoff odds in 280 against the Lakers. That was the biggest odds between either of us that we won in a series. And in the finals, we were also bigger underdogs than y'all were to the Magic. So again, I think we played better players who accomplished more, and we overcame greater odds with less of a talent on our team versus more talent on other teams.
All right. As far as players being in their prime, I think you can argue that Kobe, despite winning a chip the year before, was out of his prime. He probably was out of the league 4 or 5 years later, maybe.
I think he was an All-Star that year.
Yeah, but I'd say prime Kobe is probably a few years before that.
I mean, going back to back though. I mean.
Yeah, but I don't think Jordan's last 2 championships he was in his prime. His team was just super good. Maybe Jordan's not the best comparison to do.
If he was out of it, he was barely out of it.
Yeah, when I'm trying to knock a player, I'm not going to compare him to Jordan anymore. Let's scratch that. So you mentioned Barkley was coming off a finals run in 92, 93. The Rockets just smacked him down the year before. I believe he was an MVP 92, 93. Robinson MVP that year. The Jazz would go on to 2 finals the next year. Everyone the Rockets are facing are literally in their prime. The Magic, we know what Shaq becomes. Penny Hardaway unfortunately got injured. I don't think Yeah, there's no even Dennis Rodman. Was that his best year ever? It's just surprising to me. That's why I keep bringing him up. And then I kind of mentioned this earlier. The Rockets face the actual hardest possible schedule that you could actually face in the playoffs, facing a 1, 2, and 3 seed, and then the 1 seed in the East. You actually can't make it any harder than that. And 16 Portland, I am going to harp on that a little bit. It just kind of drags it down. The Lakers are impressive with Kobe. I'm not too high in Oklahoma City only because we've seen people try to win with Westbrook. You can put greats on his team. It's not going to happen. Durant's tried it. LeBron's tried it. You can have great players with them, but it doesn't mean his team is going to be great. And Harden coming off the bench in that one wasn't the Harden we know yet. And then Miami, yeah, you got LeBron, but LeBron was choking it up in the finals. Dwayne Wade was scoring more points than him. I think LeBron shot 60% from the free throw line. If that doesn't speak to someone choking in a finals, LeBron should not be shooting 60% from the finals. I mean, from the free throw line in the finals. That's not a good look. And that Heat team, come on, we've seen LeBron get out of the East like what, 8 times, and he only wins without the super team. He won one other time in Cleveland.
So we do acknowledge it was a super team. Glad we did that.
I mean, it was a failed super team in year 1.
Wasn't
good yet.
Two.
Only got good the next year. But just beating LeBron and what LeBron does. If you're facing LeBron in the finals, it's almost like a benefit for your team. Because what is he, 3, 4, and 10? I didn't even look up LeBron's stats on this. Let me see what else we got here. Oh, and that Oklahoma City team, if you have Kendrick Perkins and Thabo Sefolosha in your starting lineup, how good can you even be? And I believe they were a number 4 seed. Just the seedings, I just don't see how you could say it's a harder run. Just because Kobe and LeBron are in that run, it doesn't mean that it's the best teams that they ever had. Or I don't even know if did the Heat ever win without Ray Allen? Like, that team wasn't complete yet.
Yeah, they won 2 with Ray Allen, I'm pretty sure.
No, I mean without him. Like, did they just try 1 year and then the next year get Ray Allen?
I can't quite remember. I don't think Ray Allen was on that 2011 team. I know that.
Yeah, he wasn't on that team. So I'm gonna look up for my next turn.
But again, Bosh, Wade, and LeBron were all All-Stars that year. That's 3 All-Stars on a team.
But I wonder if they ever won without Ray Allen. It's your turn.
Okay, so I think it's rich that you knocked Westbrook, right, for not winning, right? Again, Barkley never won. Malone and Stockton never won. Robinson didn't win until Duncan got there. And then if you want to say, oh, well, like, you know, they weren't in their prime or whatever, well, Shaq wasn't really in his prime either, right? And again, he didn't win until he played with Kobe and Dwayne Wade. And again, Dwayne Wade already won a final. I would know better than anyone in 06, right? Again, we played 5 of the 50 greatest, 5 MVPs, and then that doesn't even include Paul Gasol, Brandon Roy, Aldridge, and Bosh. And on that Oklahoma City team, you had again, James Harden didn't start, but he scored 14 or 15 points, 54% shooting on like 32 minutes, right? He played a good amount and he played pretty good. You had Ibaka, Durant, Westbrook, and who were the other 2 you said? Perka and Vujacic? Or Pavlovic or whatever for the Thunder starting 5. That's a pretty good starting 5, right? Perkins. Yeah, that's a pretty good starting 5. I mean, this is back when Ibaka was really good and playing at his best. Westbrook was playing pretty much at his top level, and Durant led the league in scoring that year, right? I mean, this was not a scrub team. Secondly, remember that you guys played a 5-game series in the first round, correct? Even with that, Dallas only lost 5 games 5 games total in the playoffs, playing 7-game series against largely, let's just call it roughly the same amount of competition, right? Again, we lost 2 to Portland, right? So even if you take that out, against the 2nd seed in the West, the odds-on favorite, the Lakers, which by the way, the Lakers series, that was the biggest underdog series that either of us won at plus 280. we swept them, right? We didn't lose any games to them. Oklahoma City, we're a tiny favorite because I think we had home court. We lose only one game to them. We're a bigger underdog in the finals than you guys were to the Magic. We only lose 2 games to them, right? So if you want to talk about winning, correct? And one thing we're still not bringing up is you guys had Clyde Drexler on your team with Hakeem, right? I know we focus a lot on who we each played, but also looking at our teams, there's no way there's not a snowball chance in hell that anyone would say that Mavs roster was as good, especially in the top tier talent, as what the Rockets had with Hakeem, the reigning MVP, in his prime, playing his best, and Clyde, who had been an All-Star 7 years in a row before that. And Dirk's essentially on the downhill slope of his career. He hasn't. I think he missed the All-Star game the next 2 years, I believe, and then he kind of got in on a popular vote there at the end. We're talking about playing. LeBron and Kobe are easily the 2 best players that either of us played against. Dwayne Wade is one more than anybody else you guys played against too, besides Shaq. Again, taking our roster, right? It's not just about who we played, but also our roster. Looking at the Mavs roster, a bunch of, I don't want to say washed up, but a bunch of older guys that hadn't been on an All-Star team in like 5, 6, 7 years. Chandler wouldn't make his first All-Star team until 2 years later when he went to the Knicks. And essentially, Jason Kidd had been an All-Star the year before, wasn't an All-Star the year before that. I mean, we're essentially talking about one All-Star on a team going against roughly the same amount of competition and winning even more impressively than what the Rockets did, with a greater player in Clyde Drexler, who was also in his prime, doing their thing, right? So that's what I mean. Like, this whole who the Rockets played and beat, I think is misleading. Because, again, you guys get Clyde, 35 games to go during the season. You add essentially another 50 greatest to your team, along with the reigning MVP. I think that needs to be that's literally half the argument, right? You have 2 guys in their absolute prime who are 2 of the greatest ever, and versus Dirk, who has a lot of older vets, unproven guys, right? You have, Clyde had been to the finals, correct? Like, in his prime, he'd been to the finals and lost to Jordan. I know Kidd went to the finals twice, but that was when the East sucked, and he went there with Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson, right? Like, give me a break on that one. But again, Dirk takes a bunch of guys who had never won a ring before, a bunch of guys who were traded away from their teams, not taken seriously, had kind of been given up on, and Dirk essentially just buzzsaws his way as one guy in this team that everyone just played their part perfectly, and they overcame. I say greater odds. We beat. You guys were the second favorite to start the year. You just didn't live up to expectations in the regular season. And that's why, again, I think then when you put that into perspective into the playoffs, yes, you guys beat great players, a team, sure. But you guys were also a really great team. You were not a true 6 seed. So that's why I think it's a little inflated when you say, look who we beat. Well, it's because you guys didn't get the proper seeding you probably should have, and should have lived up to your expectation during the regular season, right? The Mavs over-exceeded expectations. I think they went 12 games over their win total or something crazy like that. The 3rd seed, a lot of people didn't even pick them to beat Portland. Again, it was the smallest spread I could find between a 3 and a 6 seed between the Mavs and Portland, right? Then the Mavs had the biggest upset between either of us against LA. We're the bigger underdog in the finals. And in terms of just talent and people we played, again, once you get out of that Portland series, which again they had 2 All-Stars essentially to our 1, again, it's just an absolute murderer's row of teams that we had to play, and how much we were underdogs and how much we did it, right? You guys were that Houston Rockets team, in my opinion, was definitely a better roster with Clyde and Hakeem than what the Rockets had. Than what the Mavericks had.
All right, so each NBA season, it's different. We might have started out as a favorite, but it definitely didn't pan out that way. The team, like you said, it won first 6 and then just kind of was 500. Even after trading for Drexler, who I would argue was not in his prime, he was like 33 years old, things didn't really click. So we might have started out as the betting favorite, but when the playoffs rolled around, nobody thought Houston was going to win. It was, I'm kind of curious if you found any other betting odds, because I would think that the Rockets over the Spurs would be the bigger
Yeah, I got them
That's
right
good.
here. We don't. I guess we don't have to keep up with the rounds. But in 1995, you guys were plus 210 against the Jazz, plus 210 against the Suns, plus 250 against the Spurs, and plus 130 against the Magic. The Mavericks in 2011 were right here. They were minus 200, so slight favorites against the Trailblazers, plus 280 against the Lakers. Again, Lakers were back-to-back champions. And we beat the team that would go on to be back-to-back champions after us. Now that I think about it, that's kind of crazy. And then they were slight favorites, minus 240. I guess that's a little more than I thought. And then they were plus 155 against the Heat. So, again, 280 is the biggest spread. And then we were also bigger underdogs going into the finals.
Yeah, fake news, all that. You mentioned Westbrook. So, and you said, I guess you compared him to Barkley. Barkley led a team to the finals. Westbrook will never do that. It's widely considered like a hindrance to like other good players. He's the kind of player that can take an average team to the playoffs, but he'll never beat elite players or elite teams in the playoffs. It's kind of just known. Like, he's literally played with the best in his generation and just kind of drags them down. So I don't see the Oklahoma City thing as, oh, he's got Durant and then Harden becomes Harden later. That team would never work. Even if you put all three of them in their prime, I don't think they're going to win because Westbrook demands the ball so much. And I don't think the competition was similar. I think if you face 4 out of the 5 players in the first team All-NBA, then it's almost like you can't play a harder schedule for the year that you're playing in. I mean, I don't know who the 5th player was. And then when you're looking at the MVP race that year, it's Robinson, destroyed him. Shaq, swept him. Malone, beat him. Didn't play Ewing. Elijah One's in it, so you got to take off Elijah One. Beat Barkley, beat Stockton, beat Penny, beat Rodman, and then MJ gets in there just because he's MJ. And then here's who the Mavs faced. They faced 4 of the possible 11. The Rockets defeated 7 of 11 possible MVP candidates. The Mavs only faced 4, and that was LeBron, Kobe, Durant, and Wade. So a bunch of scrubs there. And
okay, so first of all, first team, we had 3 that year that we played against. First team All-NBA.
Yeah, Rockets had 4 they played against. Oh, I got the whole breakdown right here.
And then also, did you go to the second team?
Yeah,
we had 3 on that one too.
Yeah, so the Rockets faced 7 out of 13, and the Mavericks faced 7 out of 14. But if you average them, the average is way better for the Rockets. Like, if you did like a power score, right? Like, reversed it to where you give 3 to the All-NBA first team instead of 1.
Better.
I believe it's Rockets get 18, and the power score, I guess, would be 16 for the Mavs.
Yeah, it's not that much.
It's just, well, when you're only talking about, 14 players overall.
And again, I think we're missing the fact, right? Like, and by the way, Ren said that Caron Butler played in the playoffs. He was hurt the entire year. He didn't play at all. I don't know why he thinks that. Butler did not play in the playoffs at all. He went down with like 30 in let's see, 2010-11. He only played 29 games, and he was out for the rest of the year. He didn't play in the playoffs. I'm looking at it right now. 2010, 2011, there are no stats for him. And then also, what did he say? Oh, yeah, he said that Clyde's points were down. He scored during the playoffs. Clyde averaged, in the playoffs, he averaged 21 points on 56% shooting. So, again, I don't know who the second... If you're saying that's low, then what Dirk had was even lower, correct? And again, like, I think in terms of the premium players that we faced, right? Like, 3 all NBA and 4 all NBA, and then 4 second NBA to 4 second NBA. Like, to me, that's essentially a neck and neck draw, right? And who I know Derrick Rose won the MVP that year. I didn't look for MVPs around the other year.
It's LeBron the year before and LeBron the year after.
So there you go. We beat LeBron again.
But LeBron, it's shown that doesn't matter. He doesn't win championships with it though.
How many champions?
He just wins the MVP.
How many champions did you guys beat?
Like that Rodman, Robinson.
Oh, come on. We're talking about people
Shaq.
who led teams. We're talking about, like you said earlier, people who led teams.
Do you see David Robinson's stats in '99?
No,
What
I mean, yeah, but he still didn't win until Duncan got there. Like, I think we would all say Duncan's better.
Well, I mean, you can't take Kobe then without, like, Shaq pretty much put him there, and then he had to get, like, Gasol and stuff.
He went back-to-back without Shaq.
Nobody's winning by themselves. LeBron is trying to get a super team.
Right, but you said leading a team. Like, Rodman, I'll give you Robinson. I would much more give you Robinson than I would Rodman.
Well, you
Rodman's
said
not even close.
Players, that won a championship, but all the championships almost are kind of just stuck with, like, LeBron and Wade, who are on the same team in that year, and LeBron's choking it up in the finals.
And KD would go on to win 2 Finals MVPs.
Yeah, true that. Probably
Westbrook was an
later.
MVP not too much further after that. So he would go on
Westbrook
to win.
is no threat. That's just a regular season MVP right there. That's a number stuffed, like, regular season MVP. Nobody thought Westbrook was going to win, and you can add any superstars to his team. It'll never matter.
Westbrook was second All-NBA that year, so, I mean, he wasn't a scrub.
But we've seen then, I think Westbrook's case since then has only gotten worse, because you've seen him on teams, including, like, he's played with LeBron. He's played, like, you went on to, like, continue his career with Durant as Harden got even better. Like, they couldn't do it, and it's,
Yeah,
you
but
see, like, when players
that's kind
without
of the
him
same
do much
argument
better.
for Malone, Stockton, and Barkley, right? Like, that's
They ran
3
into
guys
Jordan.
you could make that argument with.
All of them ran into Jordan, though.
I mean, but they could have won when Jordan wasn't there.
No, Elijah won
They
stopped
could have
him.
won before or after Jordan. Like,
Well,
I
by
mean,
the
you
time
can say they
Jordan
played
leaves-
whoever, but
2000, by the time it's 2000, I mean, Barkley's old. Malone, he's on the Lakers? No, he's on the Lakers like
maybe
2000.
by that time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't penalize, Elijah one just for shutting him down, not letting him win.
I mean,
don't forget
Olajuwon's great. I mean, that's not really the argument, though. I guess the argument is if you're going to try to take Westbrook away from me based on that argumentation, I mean, Barkley, Malone, and Stockton didn't really have kind of the same trajectory in a way. Like, Stockton didn't even win an MVP.
But I guess leading a team, Barkley led a team to the finals. Malone led a team to the finals. Westbrook led a team on his own to, the first round of the playoffs.
I don't remember what was he never got to the second round.
Year,
I can't. I didn't go that far.
I honestly
into
would
it.
be surprised. I mean, I'll look it up right now.
But again, like, let's just say, like, it's largely even, right? Which, again, I would say the people we played ended up proving that they were, again, we either played guys who had just won rings, just won MVPs, or would win rings the years after, right? None of the guys you did that, right? Until, like, way further down the line, or just never did it. Again, we look at, if you take that Portland series out, right? Even though they had 2 All-Stars to our 1, if you take that series out, I think the cream of the crop, considering we played teams that had 2, 3 All-Stars on almost every team compared to our 1, and you guys largely played teams that only had 1 All-Star that year. I just think when it comes to, like, premium talent we played, I think the Mavs edge you out. But let's just say it's largely even, right? Again, you guys had 2 of the top 50 greatest in their prime on your team, and you were expected to be great. This is why I don't really buy into the argument of the 6 seed. You guys were not a like traditional 6 seed. Not even you were defending champions with almost the exact same lineup, and then you got better. You actually got better giving up Thorpe for Drexler, right? We can all agree on that. You guys were a bona fide championship caliber team. The Mavs had been totally unproven, were huge underdogs to start the year, and essentially had one guy take that team and beat essentially 2 to 3 times the talent on the other side. And again, I think half of the argument, again, if we take who we played and it's largely very close, your team had way more talent than we did, especially at the top with Drexler and Olajuwon, right? Compared to the Mavs, who played much more team ball and were like much more of a jump shooting team. Played good defense, right? But you guys had an amazing defense as well with Hakeem.
Well, you got to look at, though, not what the players did overall their career. You got to look at the year that we're talking about here. And the year we're talking about, the Spurs were the best team in the NBA. Robinson was the best player. The second and third best team, the Suns and the Jazz, they beat those teams. I mean, and they beat the best team in the East. So, and I mean, if you look overall, you're not going to beat the names of like LeBron or if you took Kobe's earlier years, but tons of champions have years where they're not like, champion level. Like kind of by your argument, then Isaiah Thomas would have like the greatest run of all time, because he beat Bird, Jordan, and Magic. But I don't think people would consider that team the best because maybe those teams just weren't having a year. Some years teams just do better because the players around them, there's better team chemistry and stuff. So
yeah, I mean,
you're looking at like.
Well, again, like this is kind of, I guess we differentiate a little bit because you're saying like look at who we played, but I would say you guys were better than those teams. You know what I mean? Even though the record and the seeding isn't the same, and they might have been on paper looked better than you guys, I think you guys were still the better team, right? Like you just were like 2 of the 50 greatest, and no one else you played besides the Jazz had anything near that, right? I mean, I guess you could take Shaq and Penny, right? But again, Shaq and Penny had been in the league 2 and 3 years respectively, correct? I just think that's not the same as playing a seasoned LeBron who won the MVP. By the way, he led the league in win shares that year too. He essentially was the MVP 2 years before. Kobe was on a back-to-back championship team. The Heat would go on to win 2 and be in a fourth final after that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's okay to take a 2 or 3 year window and look at that. And I think the Oklahoma City victory I think you're kind of poo-pooing that a little bit. But I think, again, Westbrook was playing his ass off. Durant led the league in scoring. They had an amazing lineup. And again, you look at how we won. We swept the Lakers. We only lost 2 games to the absolute super team that is the Heat. I think on paper we could all agree that the Heat was the best team either of us played. This is what I mean. Like the Heat have 3 All-Stars and LeBron and Dwayne Wade. They win 2 championships, right? We play Kobe and Gasol, who had won 2 championships the year before. We sweep them. We only lose 2 to the Heat, and we're talking about the 2 teams that were odds-on favorite at the beginning of the year. We then go on to play Oklahoma, who had 2 bona fide stars as well. We only lose 1 game to them. And you guys go 6 or 7 games with everyone, except for the Jazz series. It was a best of 5. But again, it went 5 games. And you win on essentially a corner 3 by Mario Elie. Again, like you guys barely beat a few of those teams, right? Like we as like an underdog just smoked people. We just went through them and no one thought that was going to happen, right? I think the way we won was also much more impressive in terms of if you look at who we play. Again, I'm just going to say largely because I went through and I looked at all of the All-Stars. I didn't do the All-NBA, but I looked at All-Stars, MVPs, guys who would eventually win championships or how good they were. Like, it's pretty close. That's why these are 2 of the greatest runs ever. But the Mavs just only lost 5 games in the playoffs, right? 4 7-game series. And if you take that Portland, we lost 2, right? We only lose 3 games in the next 3 series to 3 of the best teams in the league that all had 2 or 3 All-Stars, MVPs, and champions. Like, I just think, especially those last 3 series, if we take out the first round, like, I think Dallas definitely gets the edge on that.
So, one thing I'm not hearing a bunch of is LeBron's performance on the Heat in the finals, because I think we both know it was pretty bad.
Yeah, thanks
like
to
Dwayne,
us.
So it's like I don't think that Dirk or Tyson Chandler are out there guarding LeBron. Maybe Tyson Chandler is protecting the basket, but Dwayne Wade in the finals in 4 less minutes. He's outscoring LeBron by 9 points. He's shooting 7% better in field goal percentage. Got to the line with 8 more attempts. I told you about LeBron shooting 60%. It's easy to take LeBron because he's like top 3 greatest of all time player. But in this particular season, he's not doing too good in the finals. And then another thing we haven't really talked about is how many times has a team swept a team in the finals? I'm trying to pull it up. I see like maybe 8 times in the history of the NBA.
Maybe they weren't. Again, they had no experience. I mean, 2 and 3 years in the league. I mean, that could be a big factor when your best 2 players haven't been there before.
Can we well, let's just talk about the legends being born on the Rockets here. You got the Mario Ellie kiss of death. You got Dream dismantling Robinson. Dream was already a legend, but just wanted to get that one in there. Kenny Smith set the finals record for 3-pointers when that was actually a hard thing to do. Big shot Rob in Game 3 of the finals. Mr. Jumbo Nut himself, Sam Cassell. Game 3, 31 points off the bench. And then the never underestimate the heart of a champion quote. Could you get any more legends in the one season?
I think, well, if you look at what the 2011 championship did to, like, Kid's legacy, Dirk's legacy, Sean Marion, like, Jason Kidd, or Jason Terry and Sean Marion and all those guys getting rings, like, that was pretty big. And also
the
one
Terry
thing,
tattoo was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is a pretty ballsy call. But also, like, the thing about the Magic series is I think you guys just absolutely dominated the matchups, right? Shaq versus Akeem, a prime Akeem versus a young Shaq, absolutely ate his lunch, even though Shaq had good numbers, right? You look at Penny Hardaway versus someone like Clyde Drexler, right? It's just their 2 best players, I think, just happened to run in 2 better players who play their position as well. I know that Drexler was a shooting guard.
Sure.
I know Drexler was a shooting guard and Penny was a point guard, but, like, they still, again, when you talk about their stats and how they counteract, I think they just ran into, like, a horrible matchup, right? And Akeem was probably able to control Shaq and corral him a lot better than probably anybody else in the league would have, right? And then, yeah, so, like, you guys swept them, which is, I mean, that's impressive, right? But again, you went 6 or 7 games. I think you went 7 against the Suns, 6 against the Spurs, and then you went to best of 5 against the Jazz, right? So, like, the Jazz might have gone 6 or would have went at least 6 or 7 if you play best of 7, right? So, I mean, I just also like the way you guys kind of, I don't want to say scraped by, right? Because you swept in the finals. But, again, the Mavs, like, only lose 5 games the entire playoff and having to play in a 7-game series in the first round. Again, sweeping the back-to-back defending champions. That was also the biggest spread either of us overcame, and we swept that one. I think that series, just on paper, is probably the most impressive. And then you guys were slightly less underdogs than we were going into the finals, right? And we won that one 4-2. So, and also Wright said we were favored in all of our series. We weren't. We were barely favored against Portland. Again, that was the closest 3-6 matchup I could find. I tried to go through a few teams that I didn't have all the time in the world, but that was the closest 3-6 spread I could find. It was not that much. We were favored against Oklahoma City. Again, not by much. And then we were the biggest underdog against LA, and we were a bigger underdog going into the finals. So, and again, even the games that, we were favored were not by much, and you guys were essentially like I don't want to say a coin flip, but you guys were essentially like a minus 200 throughout the entire playoffs as well, which it's not like that crazy, but yeah, you guys were underdogs the whole ways too.
I mean, I had the stats somewhere. How many teams have come back from 3-1?
Yeah, I saw that too. So many
legendary things here. Yeah,
against the Spurs.
Suns, sorry. Yeah, that was the Kiss of Death series, I believe.
Yeah, and Mavs. Oh, one thing. Thanks for bringing that. One thing I forgot to bring up is like the fourth quarter comebacks the Mavs had. They had like 10. Remember Game 2 down by 15 with like 7 minutes to go. They were down by 16 in a fourth quarter in Game 1 against LA. In Game 3 in LA, they were down by 7 with like 4 or 5 minutes to go. Mavs had like a lot of gritty wins in terms of that series. And they also they went down 2-1 as well, which is also a pretty hard thing statistically to come back from. Not as much, but again, coming down 2-1 and you lose home court advantage is, again, not exactly the best thing to come back from. Not like a 3-1, but again, I think everyone thought the Mavs were done after they lost Game 3. I went to that game, by the way.
Another thing, though. Here's a point that I almost left off that's pretty big. Vernon Maxwell is a huge contributor to the Rockets, right, in the regular season. Played one playoff game and essentially kicked them off the team.
Him and Akeem got in a fight, right, or something?
I think he just had it was like a bad attitude. I know Akeem,
right? He was a bit of a gangster.
He was our pit bull.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he tried Akeem or what, but yeah, he only played one playoff game in 94, 95, and he wasn't hurt or anything. So that's another thing. Then you're throwing in a rookie, Cassell, getting way more minutes that you probably didn't plan to do that as well. Bernie Maxwell was a huge part of the team, like on the previous roster, on the previous championship roster.
That was Cassell's second year, right? Pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let's see. Yep. No, you're right.
Okay. I mean, he's still young, but, you know.
Yeah. Second year.
And Hammond, I guess maybe Hammond just joined. Hammond said being a 3 seed, hard to be a huge underdog. Well, we were the biggest underdog against the Lakers, and we were a bigger underdog going into the finals. But also, this kind of goes back to my point that, like, you guys, and I mean, you don't have to agree with me, but, like, you guys were not a traditional 6 seed, right? Again, you guys had the same team from the year before where you finished second in the West. You then get Drexler, like, 2/3 of the way through the season, who's another all-time 50 greatest, still in his prime. I just think it's not that it's not impressive who you guys beat. I just think it's a little inflated considering the fact you guys were defending champions, and you weren't worthy of a 6 seed, right? You guys definitely should have been a 2, 3, or 4 seed in my opinion. But again, it doesn't change who you beat, right? And you probably would have had to beat those teams anyways for the most part, right? So yeah, the run's definitely still impressive, but I just think the key difference is not. I know we keep talking about who we played. I think the key difference is the Mavs, like, bona fide stars or all-stars or lack thereof versus the Rockets, right? I think ultimately that's what in people's minds sticks out, is that one guy took a team to the finals and essentially beat all the best players in the league at the time on, you know, a team. Again, we were like plus 2,000 to start the season, which is the second all-time greatest preseason odds in terms of someone winning the championship, right? Like, in my opinion, that kind of says it all in a snapshot, that you guys were the second odds-on favorite and we were essentially like 10th or 12th or something. It's the second greatest all-time preseason odds, right? And I know that you're saying, like, as the season goes on, like, things change and progress, and I agree. But again, I think it just shows, like, where we started, right? And you guys are kind of getting extra credit for not living up to the hype and struggling. And, you know, then I think you guys just caught, not lightning in a bottle, but I think you guys came together at the right time. And you essentially you go back to back, right? So that's what I mean. Like, Hammond says it's hard to be an underdog as a 3 seed. I kind of find it hard to be an underdog when you're the defending champion and your roster got better, right? I think we all agree it got better with Drexler. I think there's no arguing that. So, like, that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, you're an underdog, but, like, are you really? I don't think so. And you beat the Suns the year before. You didn't play you did beat Utah the year before too. Mm-hmm. You didn't play San Antonio the year before. It's like 2 of those teams you'd already beaten, and you only had a better roster, right?
Well, 2 of the teams though that the Mavericks beat, like the Trailblazers never go on to really be anything with that group. Maybe a second round team. And then Oklahoma City, they're the baby Thunder Pups right now. This is like their second year in the playoffs. The previous year they were bounced in the first round.
Durant led the league in scoring, I think, the year before and the year after.
Yeah, he's a baller.
And
I know that.
Again, all NBA for Durant and second team All NBA for Westbrook. Like, again, so like if they're babies, then the Magic are even more babies, you know?
Well, the rest of I was going to say, the Rockets, though, those Jazz teams, seasoned, right? Veterans, they know what they're doing.
For sure.
Spurs team have been in the playoffs since like 89, 90.
I actually think that Jazz team might have been the best team you played, in all honesty.
Yeah, Suns or Jazz. Like the regular season with the Spurs, like they were the best team that year on paper, like regular season wise.
Yeah,
but
they were the one.
I think when you look at like Rodman and Robinson, I think you just need more just firepower and less rebounds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a rebound juggernaut. But still, all those guys, though, tons and tons of experience, like all across the board. Like, I guess the least experienced team might have been Orlando, which they swept anyway.
Not even close.
So the gauntlet was really in the Western Conference, and it really was kind of a new team. Now that I remember the whole Maxwell thing, you're getting used to Drexler, and then you got Maxwell gone, so they're trying to kind of find it and win against teams. You don't want to go in with any disadvantage against like Stockton and Malone, freaking Hornacek, and I don't know if Ostertag's there yet. Those guys are gonna like pick you apart
I don't think
because
so.
they're like just veterans. Like any weakness, they're gonna manipulate it.
Yeah, I
So I think
mean,
the experience of it's tough run of experience they faced.
you could say that. You could say that like for the Lakers, they were really seasoned. Obviously, for the
Yeah.
you could compare Oklahoma and Orlando in terms of experience, I suppose. But the Heat were definitely experienced, and the Lakers were definitely experienced. Portland, I mean, Aldridge and Roy were again. This is like in their prime, so I'm not gonna discount them. But yeah, that team never really amounted to much. Roy, I think, essentially a year or two after this when he really got hurt, and he essentially was done for. I totally forgot he actually retired and came back, or tried to come back. He only played like 6 games or something.
Yeah, that's nuts. That guy started out as like a just burst on the scene.
Yeah, and yeah, I didn't know that about Maxwell, but again, we lost Butler too, and we didn't get to replace him with anyone. I mean, at least you guys got Drexler in a way, I suppose.
But I would say almost losing Butler early on is probably better than play
Yeah,
one
yeah,
playoff game and then
you can
pick him off.
adjust. Yeah, I agree with that. But again, I would
Hey,
say Butler was probably a lit in terms of what he had done up to the third of the way through the season. Probably was a little more intricate or important to our team than Maxwell. Maybe I didn't compare Maxwell and Butler those because I didn't know that, so I can't totally confirm that.
I mean, I will say this: if we weren't having this debate, I would usually always be defending this Mavs team because I was hardcore for the Mavs that year. Did not want to see the Heat doing it.
LeBron, everybody hated LeBron.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was literally the first year after the not one, not two,
Yeah.
whatever he did. Take my talents to South Beach, and then
For sure.
and that Mavs team was fun. Like we always give you shit about. Oh yeah, Nick, they had like 47 All-Stars, but it just seemed like that because they had like probably 8 or 9 deep of players you had heard about before,
Yeah.
who like played well together. So you kind of enjoyed watching them, and then Terry was fun as like a little shit talker out there, and Dirk
Yeah.
with his unstoppable
I love
shot. So
Terry.
I mean, I was for the Mavs that year. I'm just never gonna go against my boys.
Yeah, well,
Just wanted to get
absolutely,
the Mavs a
100%.
little
Yeah,
bit of flowers.
actually, I went back and essentially no one on that team either had been an All-Star yet, or they'd only been at like Page's last All-Star was like '04. He was an
Completely
All-Star.
forgot about Peja.
Yeah, he was an All-Star for like 2 or 3 years there. And Terry was never an All-Star. Chandler would be an All-Star 2 years later on the Knicks. Kidd was an All-Star the year before, but not the year before that. His numbers were not that impressive. I think he kind of got in because the Mavs had a good year the year before, so he kind of got in based on the record. Because he actually had worse numbers in 2011, and then I don't think he ever went to another All-Star game. His numbers actually dropped off kind of bad in 2011, and he never went back. And then, what was the other one? Caron Butler hadn't been an All-Star since like 2006. Same with Marion. So like
Kid kind of transitioned though from run and gun floor general to just smart half court.
a little more methodical, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of had to, right? I mean, he wasn't keeping up with guys anymore, so
I mean, I would say dragging Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson to the finals is pretty impressive.
yeah. The East also, that's when they really sucked, though.
Yeah.
I
mean,
can't even
that's
remember
why-
who else was around during that time. It was so bad.
Yeah, Iverson got stomped. Yeah, who else? The Nets 2 years in a row, right?
Yeah, That's actually it's crazy to think Kobe had 5 rings when we played him, and nobody had a ring that y'all played.
Hey,
That's what I mean. Like, I just think
Dennis Rodman had 2.
no, come on, that doesn't count. But
Number
like
12 with the MVP that year.
he was still a bad rebounding machine though. But like that's just kind of what I mean. It's like at the time when we beat them, I just feel like the competition was a little stiffer on our end in terms of Kobe had 5 rings, tons of experience, just went back to back. LeBron had just won 2 MVPs. He would go on to win 2 rings the next year. I think he won another MVP, or yeah, he'd go on to win 2 more MVPs. I'm pretty sure. Dwayne Wade had already won a championship, being the best player. Chris Bosh hadn't won anything, but even he was an all-star that year. KD was leading the league in scoring. I just feel like, and also, again, I think the X factor here is the fact that we only had one, not even a superstar, right? This is not 2006, 7, 8 Dirk. This is 2011, definitely on the bit of a down. He's beginning the downslope of his career. Might have been the most complete Dirk, but definitely not the prime and his like athletic Dirk. Maybe the smartest or like most complete game Dirk, but definitely like on the downhill slope of his career. So was everyone else on that team, minus Tyson Chandler, who also I think missed like 15 games that year too. I just think like our team was not, in terms of stars and all-stars, definitely not as good. And I think just the top premier talent that we beat, and the way that we beat them, I think it's important to keep mentioning that we only lost 5 games. We only lost 3 games against the defending champion Lakers, the Thunder, and then the eventual 2-time champion Heat. We only lost 3 games to those guys after the first round. I just think it gives us a bit more of an edge. Like, I don't buy the 6 seed. I mean, it is impressive. Like, who you beat is impressive. I just don't buy the 6 seed narrative. I don't see you guys as a 6 seed. I think you should have been 2, 3, 4 seed, right? And this is how I started off with. Like, I don't think you guys should get extra credit for struggling and then playing up to what you should have played, right? Again, who you beat, who you went through, it was definitely like probably rounds 1 to 4. The way I kind of put it is like the 4 rounds you guys played, maybe the teams were on average a little tougher, but that's just because we played Portland in the first round. I think if you take like the 3 toughest rounds, I think there's no doubt that those 3 toughest rounds that Dallas played were tougher than any of the 3 rounds you could pick from those 4 rounds that you guys played. So like,
I think embarrassing the Magic though just makes them look bad as if they weren't that good, but they did beat the Bulls, and the Bulls had all those veterans, won 3 championships, all those guys were there. They did take them down. So I mean, yeah, they didn't have finals experience, but they had arguably like the most experience you could get up to that point, like literally playing like Jordan and Pippen and those guys. So
yeah,
it wasn't I think the sweeps like kind of working both ways. It looks kind of easy, but then it should be like a show of like force really, but then it just also can make the other team look not as good.
Yeah, because like I guess also like we swept a team who had just done it twice, right? Like we swept the team, and again that was the biggest odds that either of us overcame, and we swept that series, which is on paper that was the most impressive series, right? In terms of the odds. And the fact that they were back-to-back champions. And then you guys swept a team, still impressive, right? But swept a team who had never been there, was really young. And, just kind of, you're kind of right. It's almost like you beat them so bad that it hurts your case a little bit.
I was, a couple things I found out just like while researching this that I think I probably should have known that the Defensive Player of the Year award is now named after Elijah One. Maybe I knew that and forgot it. Yeah,
I totally forgot that too.
Yeah,
I probably purposely forgot it.
And then the Suns roster like ended up being like one of my favorites. Like,
what, that year you beat him?
I think Dan Marley was a first team All NBA. I never would have thought he had been on like the first team All NBA. And
that year he was?
Yeah.
In 94-95 he was first team All NBA?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of the 4. That's one of the 4 that I was talking about. So it's Marley, Barkley, Ainge. It's like all the guys that you end up like liking just randomly happen to be on the Suns. Well, we knew Kevin Johnson, right? But Ainge.
Ainge was first team?
No. I'm just talking about people on the Suns.
Oh, okay.
I was just like, I like all these guys almost. Wesley Person.
What was Marley's stats though?
Let me pull up old Danny Marley Mar. Wait. Oh, that's his career. It's like, Jesus Christ. It's not good. 94, 95. Marley pouring in.
Wow, 15.5 points on 50%. Come on, dude. All NBA for that?
I mean, unless I'm just completely making this. Let's see, All NBA.
Dude, come on. Ian
95.
exposed.
Let's
I
see,
think
94.
largely they probably got all NBA for winning, and maybe his defense too. I don't remember him being a defensive specialist, but wow, these stats Ian are pulling up. I'm just kidding.
Hold on, let's see. 1990. Where's the first team stuff? Here we go. Awards.
Bynum was also an All-Star the year after 2011, so that's almost 3 All-Stars on that team. They also had Meta World Peace. I forgot about that.
Wait.
What was it? The Rumble in the Palace? Is that what it was called?
Uh,
The Malice
Malice
at the
in the
Palace.
Palace.
Until it came to Dallas.
Hold on. I was way off here. Maybe he was an all-star starter. I think I was getting my stats confused.
Uh-oh.
He's probably no. I have the correct amount of like players on the first team. The first team players were Stockton, Hardaway, Pippen, Malone, and David Robinson. So basically, Pippen the only one from the East. And then the second team that year was Gary Payton, Mitch Richmond, Barkley, Kemp, and Shaq. Third team, Reggie, Clyde, Rodman, Shrimp, Elijah.
Dang. Olajuwon disrespected.
I think just the regular season that year did not go.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I kind of
Did
forgot.
not go
yeah.
very well.
He still put up, like, monster numbers, though. Am I right?
When did he not?
True.
Surprised he didn't take the Raptors to the promised land.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, 94, 95, Elijah got third team while putting in 27.8
And 12.
with a fat 18% 3-point percentage. And
28 and
so,
12, bro.
Yeah, 28. Well, 28 and 11, yeah.
Well, 11.9, right? Am I looking at that right?
That's 93, 94.
Oh. Yeah, you're right. Still 28 and 11. Here's your third team All-NBA selection. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Bro, Akeem was such a fucking dog, dude. He was so good, man.
Even when he like looks old, like when I was watching that where the Jazz give us the dagger with the Stockton 3, it's not like he's like flashing all over the place, but it's then you like turn around and he's got like a 6 stat line.
Yeah, he's just like, well, I mean, his strides too, right? Like that's what I mean, like his footwork. He just was so efficient the way he moved.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it'd just be a step or two here, and he's like already way ahead of you. Yeah, dude.
That was the thinking. I was reading about the Thorpe trade, and it was they just kind of felt it was too crowded inside, right? Like Thorpe and Olajuwon and Drexler, you know, he's on the outside, so they figured that would work out. And then when it kind of didn't, I guess people started writing them off because in the regular season they just kind of stayed at that. I think it was 500 after the trade.
Yeah.
So I guess people were just like, oh, maybe this isn't their year. And then going down, when you go down 3-1 in a series, people are like, this is going to run out. There's no way it's going to keep going.
Him and asked who I would take to start a team. Definitely Akeem. It's not even close. Actually, I was saying this in my pre-debate video I made a couple nights ago. I was saying if you have to take like salary implications into account and like you're trying to build a team around a guy who like does the most for like the most bang for your buck, Hakeem might be the first pick, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the defense and the defense is hard to match because you've got Jordan is great defense, but when you have the defense at the rim, it makes it like that much more important.
Yeah. I mean, you could obviously say Jordan, right? Another top 5 like two-way player. But yeah, you just think about protecting the rim and getting easy buckets. Like he could run too, right? Like making the other 5 have to run and keep up with you is a big deal. Like he could still play in today's league even with the more fast tempo, you know, smaller, like more athletic guys on average. Like he could still play today, like no problem at all, you know.
Yeah, and you know, Jordan is not affecting Olajuwon's game when they're going head to head, right? But Olajuwon's affecting Jordan's game. He's keeping Jordan on the outside. It's going to be harder for him to attack the inside and get those buckets.
Yeah.
And he's going to get some Jordan calls, but when you're going up against the guy that Ward's named after, you're not going to get as many calls as you used to get.
Yeah, and like what Jordan averaged 30 in the playoffs, and Akeem averaged what 26, 27. You know, it's
Hey,
like
you know more than I do at this point.
he'll make it up in other places, and like you also think about like his all-time steals, all-time blocks, all-time rebounds, all-time points. Like it's hard to think of like a more like versatile contributor all over the floor than Akeem. It's really hard, to think of anyone better. I mean, obviously Jordan's the GOAT, right? But like he's gonna demand the highest salary for sure, right? Also, like Jordan has to have the ball in his hands a lot more than Akeem. Like Akeem's a little bit more of a you get the ball in the post and you do something with it, or you either make a move or you kick it back out, right? Which is also there's something to say for that as well. So I mean, I don't know. It's Akeem, man. He was just all over the place.
Oh yeah, Hammond brought up he did play while fasting.
And, yeah, that's true. Or what was it? You can only eat at night, right? During Ramadan.
I think it's like you can only have water until nighttime or some shit.
I think at night you can eat. Like they pig out and have big dinners at night. If I remember right, I had a Muslim coworker for a while who did that. I'm pretty sure like once the sun goes down, you can break the fast, but you can't. You fast during sun like
right,
during
so you're
daylight
practicing
hours.
And playing games basically without food, which ran Lamar on the booger sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like Hakeem was probably stuffing his face, right? Like at night, and then you're right. It'd still be hard to play on an empty stomach. Although playing on an empty stomach's better than playing on a full stomach, I can tell you that.
Well, butterflies.
Yeah. Oh shit. Well, let's get to the real topic. What do you think about all this UFO stuff?
Oh, dude, I was just have you heard that Vegas story?
Mm-mm.
Really? I thought so this kid calls 911, right? And he's like, there's some 8-foot, two 8-foot
in the backyard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
okay, I did hear that.
They're like so you're telling me there's two people back there? He's like, well, they're like 8 feet tall. There's two beings or whatever. And then the cops are like, when they get there, like the body cam footage shows, he's like, I'm taking this kind of seriously right now because my partner saw the same thing you saw in the sky, and the cop seems kind of sketched about it.
Yeah, I heard that.
And they're like, yeah, and like the video of his body cam shows like this perfect circle or something like on the ground. I haven't seen the video. I just heard it on like a podcast today. But it kind of coincides like within like a week of them like releasing, or the guy, they have like was it the ex-Air Force guy that's come out and he's testifying now?
Lazarin or something like something like that, or
that's like an ex-Air Force guy that's like,
I can't remember his name.
He's basically saying like, oh yeah, we've known about it since the 30s. They definitely have been in contact with other like biological beings.
Well, there was like another whistleblower who came out, I guess, just like a couple of days ago, I guess, and was saying like they have actual bodily material, or it was said something like that, of like aliens or whatever. Dude, like my whole thing though is like the fact that like government officials and ex-government people are the ones now pushing it. It makes me doubt it. You know what I mean? Like I want a random guy to like take a selfie with an alien or like walk up on a crash, and be like, I just feel like that's how it would actually happen. And I feel like if the government's coming out and pushing it, it makes me skeptical. Like, what are you guys really trying to do? Like, what's the game plan here,
I think maybe they're just, like, more ballsy now because they know, like, look, if I get out now, I get out to millions. Everyone's got a phone. Everyone knows this. It's going to be harder to be like, let's just cover this up.
Yeah. It's almost like the pressure release valve system. Like they're kind of... like it's building up, so they're kind of like slowly letting pressure out until like, I don't know, we'll see what the end game is. But
I mean, why else would, like, it says 3 military veterans testified in Congress, so they would have had to get together and been like, look, we might be able to get more famous, but we have to lie to Congress first. I think I kind of want to think like maybe they actually know something. It seems kind of ballsy to be like, let's just go in here and make a bunch of shit up about the government.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't care either way, right? Whatever happens, not like we're going to have an effect on it.
Yeah, there's nothing we could do if they got here. Like,
yeah.
Alien shows up, we're like, all right, what do you want, bro? You're in control here. You're running this show.
For sure. Bro, Strohs got smashed last night.
Oh, God. Dude, as soon as I told Ryan, don't jinx it, I look back and it's like 13. I think y'all ended with like 15 runs. I think I heard y'all beating trash cans.
Yeah. So
I
funny,
mean, Ren
dude.
was going on today saying, he's like, they're always scoring a bunch of runs on us. I was like, Ren, I think they just have a good offense. He's like, they got to be cheating. I wonder if he's still in the chat.
Oh shit. When me and Ren went, right, telling the story again about them in the wilderness.
Michael G, wrong input.
Oh my god, I've been on my other phone or other. Well, good thing it's right there, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean you sounded clear the whole time.
Oh, okay. Well, that was sounding clear to you. Of course, nobody in the chat could say anything and like speak up. Jesus, guys.
Oh, is it coming through a little like?
I have my other microphone right here that I use sometimes, like when I stand up and record videos. Good job, guys. God, sitting there just listening the whole time.
Ren said you sounded good, and Wright said
Oh,
it
okay.
sounded clear.
I
guess
guess
maybe
whatever.
he just could tell because you're that close to the mic.
I was a little further away. Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I was watching the volume levels; they were good, so it's probably not that bad.
Dude, if we had done this whole thing and you had just been muted the whole time, I'd have been like, God damn it.
No, I was watching it. I mean, the levels were good. Maybe it just sounds like I'm a little far away, but the levels should have been good.
Sign up Michael G for our audio engineer.
Oh shit. All right. Well, anything else?
No, I think though. Just judging by the chat, you're once again got to start out behind the 8 ball on this one.
It's all right. You know me, baby. I'll take any minority position for the team.
Uh,
Just remember that, people. I do this for you. I gotta give me some wins. I do this for you.
Oh, I guess I was saying the other day in the group chat, I thought that maybe more people would take the Rockets just because of like 90s nostalgia basketball. But I think y'all were saying, I think maybe because y'all did beat the Heat, that maybe the stronger position would be the Mavs outside of our group.
Yeah, and like, see, this is where I actually think the year before, when you guys won as a 2 seed, is more impressive than the back-to-back. Again, I think the 6 seed is a little bit of fool's gold. I've already made my point on that. But, also you think about Dirk's legacy, been there in 06, gets a revenge series against the Heat, right? Against Dwayne Wade and the Heat, the super team. Again, no other All-Stars on his team. He fucking sweeps the defending champions. Like, it was just one of those things where, like, it just felt like destiny, right? I think the Rockets, it's more like, okay, here they go now. Like, now they're back on track. Like, we've seen this before from the Rockets, right? So, like, this is what we were all waiting for, right? And then this one, it was more like no one really thought, obviously the preseason odds and stuff, and even though they were a 3 seed, no one really thought they were going to win. And it was just like one more game and then one more game. And then it was like, no way they're going to beat the Heat. And then one more game. And it was just, and then Dirk, like, just totally cements his legacy. Like, finally gets that ring to shut everybody up. And they went, Jason Kidd winning 2. And again, the hate for LeBron probably plays into it a little bit. And the super team and stuff like that. I just think it was like more the story arc with the Mavs was like out of a movie, right? As compared to like the Rockets, where it's like, we know you guys can do this. Like, come on. And then it was like, all right, yeah, like we know the Rockets can win. They won the year before. Like, we've been waiting for you guys to get in a groove and win, and then you guys did. And it's like, that's what we thought. Like, we knew you guys could do it. And then it's like the Mavericks, though, it's like, no one, I don't think, really thought that they even had a snowball's chance, right?
I think
that's really the difference.
Now we got hindsight, right? And at the time, like, sure, the Celtics were, and I've said this before, like, some people can call them a super team. I would say they were all past 30. Like, it was just more like a bunch of veterans. I could see both sides there. But as far as, like, an actual, like, super team with that many, like, top 5, top 10 players, hadn't been seen before. So at the time, everybody did think Heat are just automatically going to win, right? But since then, we have seen that team didn't win every year. The Warriors with Durant didn't win every year. Just last year, Ryan was giving me a bunch of shit about, the Suns with Booker, Durant, and all that. We've seen so many super teams since then that it's no longer a big shock. But at that time, it was a huge shock for the Mavericks to win, for sure.
Well, and also with the Celtics, like, they drafted Rondo, right? I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they get credit for that, right? I think there's a difference between like selling the future, right, to try and get a bunch of superstars. Or also the big thing that hurts the Heat is like they all got together and decided what their contracts would be. Like that's another thing too. It's
Yeah,
not
like
as if
years
the
in advance, right? A few years before or something like
yeah,
that. Couple years.
it's not like the organization got together and was like, how can we make this fit on paper, right? It was more like the players themselves got together and were almost like, you know, how can we play the system and make this work and get an advantage and sort of like cheat, not cheat, but like kind of cut the corners a little bit, you know, like whereas with the Celtics, I think it was more, you know, KG was a little older, Ray Allen was a little older. Yeah, they did come together a little bit, you could say, but like they drafted Rondo, so they get credit for that. And I don't think these guys like really like were talking to each other per se, like they were in Miami, right? So I
Your
think,
video's kind of flickering.
yeah, my camera's whatever.
Uh, yeah, and I mean, we had kind of seen like the Rockets had tried it, right? We've seen veteran big names get together. Like Rockets tried, you know, an iteration with Drexler, Elijah, and Barkley, and then they tried it with Pippen. Like that had been, we had seen that before, and kind of the Celtics. I was like, this is kind of similar. But as far as like assembling a super team,
Yeah.
that was like the first like holy shit. It was like a big event. Like they immediately made you. You kind of thought it was a little bit cool, but for the most part, you mostly hated it because of the way they did it. And then, yeah, I would say that people are like, how could a team like this lose? And then it's kind of, you know, nowadays you're like, oh yeah, super teams lose all the time.
This
And
this is my kind of hot take on it, or a little bit of a different angle. Is like this is how great Jordan was, right? Jordan goes off and wins 6 rings, right? And he won 3 before Rodman got there. They drafted Pippen, right? And he essentially wins 6 rings, right? And that becomes the new bar in the salary cap era, essentially, for players to get to. And it was like his 7th or 8th year, Jordan had finally won. And in that same time, LeBron, right, knew that if he, I guess, wanted to stay on track, he had to win a ring the next year. That was the year he went to Miami. I think LeBron knew he had to get rings to be compared to Jordan, right? And I think he went and did that hoping he'd get 4 or 5, honestly. Like, I think he was serious when he said that. And that's just how great Jordan was, right? Like, I think LeBron largely did that to chase Jordan. And it kind of ended up backfiring on him a little bit. I mean, he did get 2 rings out of it, so it's not like it was a totally empty endeavor or journey. But it definitely turned a lot of fans against him because he kind of was taking the easy way out. In my opinion, I think to chase Jordan. Like that's how good Jordan was, that he set the new standard in the specifically the salary cap era, right? 6 rings as the best player on your team, and that's what the new bar became. And like LeBron felt the pressure, like he's like, I got to start winning rings. I got to go somewhere with other guys, and that's what made him go to Miami, right?
I got a few things I just thought of. One, you should go on Michael Jordan fans on the best, have a little brief episode and get him to ask his fans because they'll probably be unbiased. 2, how many rings do you think LeBron is going to end with? He's got 4 now. And then the third one, that guy you debated for Jordan versus LeBron, you should make the stance for Kobe, because has LeBron ever done it without like I would say
Kobe's
Irving
2
is better
at the
than
end.
Gasol.
Yeah, Kobe's 2 at the end, definitely. I think,
And he's got 5 rings, and you could still use most of your arguments as far as LeBron accumulating stats. It has pushed him up there, and I would say LeBron's the favorite in that argument because of all the stats, and he's got 4 rings. But it would be fun to argue that Kobe position because he's got 5, 2 with lesser talent than LeBron ever won with. And
Kobe definitely a better defensive player too. He has like 12 All-NBA defensive team selections or something like that. I have to go back and look it up.
I always felt like LeBron was a flash defender. Like he would get the highlights, right, smacking it off the backboard. But anytime you watch the game, LeBron was not playing that best guy the whole time. And I know Kobe didn't do that at the end of his career, but I would say for maybe the first decade he was.
And that the Dream Team, that whole thing, like I think also.
Yeah, the Redeem Team. Kobe
the mentality, the Redeem Team, like it's just a little different edge with Kobe compared to someone like LeBron. I think LeBron is like so athletically gifted that he just, I don't want to say he coasts, he's not working hard. He obviously does, but like for him putting up 20, 25 points is nothing, right? Like he doesn't have the best shot. He doesn't have like a complete array of moves that like Kobe and Jordan did, correct? Like, yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of a step back, but like I never see him like consistently shoot 18-foot turnaround jumpers like with people in his face falling away, right? It's just he's just kind of like a freight train in so many ways, or like he just kind of uses his athleticism still. And I don't know. I think the next 2 years are going to be rough for him. Now that I kind of think about it, I just don't think his game is going to translate very well, right? Like Jordan and Kobe's game translated till the day they retired, just about, right? I mean, what Jordan put up 40 as a 40-year-old, the only guy to ever do that. Like, it's just, and also like this goes back to like Scott Van Pelt, right? Like, how good is your good? I think at the end of the day, people respect peaks and primes more than they appreciate longevity. Yes, like both should be applauded, but like you staying around and racking up stats, and you know you're not quite the player you were, and like maybe a guy who retired 3 to 5 years earlier, but at his prime was definitely head and shoulders better than you. I think people look back and they say like, when it was your day, your year, or your run, how good were you, right? And don't be wrong, LeBron's still a top 10 player easily, right? If not like top 5. But in terms of some of the other guys, I just think his peak, the way he chased 2 of his rings. Now that win in Cleveland, there's nothing you can say about it, right? That one, he gets that one hands down. There's nothing you can say about that one. But like chasing the 2 rings in Miami, and then he kind of teams up with Anthony Davis in LA in the bubble. Now, I don't knock the bubble, but some people do. I just think the way he won compared to Kobe, again, a young Kobe with Shaq, he stepped up big time in those finals runs, and they three-peated, right? Even though Shaq was definitely the man on those teams, no doubt about that. But yeah, like I just think Kobe's peak and his best was better than LeBron's at the end of the day.
Man, I just thought of a good thing I could have said. Was the Lakers in
too late, cutting the
03-04?
stream off.
Yeah. Were they 03-04? Were they going for a three-peat, or was there like a down year in between?
They went.
There?
He was only there for 4 years. They lose to the Mavs. They then beat Oklahoma and San Antonio, and then San Antonio gets revenge that 4th year.
Wait. So hold on.
And so then in what that would have been like 16, he goes back to Cleveland and he wins their one with Kyrie. By the way, I made a video on that. I think Kyrie should get more credit than LeBron. I mean, not by much, but I think Kyrie was the driving force behind winning that ring when you take into account his defense on Steph Curry, which I think was the difference in the series at the end of the day.
I mean, I guess the point I was like, so the Lakers had won 3 in a row, but then they lose. So like teams do lose. They lost 2 years and then.
The Lakers, they won. The San Antonio won in '99, and then the Lakers win 3, and then they lost to the Pistons.
Yeah.
In the finals, they went back to the finals though.
You know. So how many years? It was probably LeBron's 7th year you said when he teamed up with Wade.
Yeah, he'd been in Cleveland for like 6 or 7 years, and that next year, so the first year in Miami, that was when Jordan comparatively had won his first ring.
I think if you take 8th year Kobe and you put him on Dwayne Wade's team in the finals, there's no way Dwayne Wade is leading the team in the finals if Kobe's on that team.
Probably not.
I think Kobe for sure is having the better numbers across the board, and the fact that it was just like. You know, I could see Dwayne Wade, like, it wasn't that big of a shock because LeBron had kind of just, he had a lot of letdown in the playoffs before. This is more on my Kobe versus LeBron argument right now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure.
It's tough to envision a team where Kobe's on with those guys, even the Redeem team when Kobe's kind of, getting up there in age and all that. He still kind of comes on. He's the immediate leader and.
For sure, yeah, without question. That's what that whole series
I want to guard
proved.
the best guy.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
And don't forget, Kobe had been to the finals. The 2 years or 1 year he lost to the Celtics before he won those next 2. So I mean, he took another team to the finals, right? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think Gasol was on that team, but I'm not 100% sure.
That would have been.
Maybe
Gasol was, but Bynum wasn't?
Something like that, maybe, yeah. They had Lamar Odom, I think. Oh, that was like the big trade, I guess, right? When they traded, they gave a bunch
Got
of
Gasol, then lost in the finals.
they got a bunch of like
Right?
nobodies for Odom. Like it was a good trade at the time. Dude, Odom also never made an All-Star team. I was looking that up. That was surprising to me. I
Wow,
couldn't
that helped me
believe
out a
that.
bit. I would have assumed Odom made an all-star team.
Yeah, I thought
Just won
like
a bunch of six-man awards or what?
no, he started. He was definitely a starter. He just never made an All-Star team.
Dang, never managed to get in. And he was a six-man though on the Lakers, right?
No, I think, or maybe I don't know. But I know in the Heat, I thought maybe he had made one or two on the Heat because that's when he was kind of blowing up. But he had never made one.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's somebody you definitely think about as being an all-star. Like, not a perennial all-star, but at least once.
Yeah, and Ren, in terms of that Kyrie and LeBron against when they won in Cleveland, essentially, like, yes, LeBron gets him on like rebounds and assists, but Kyrie only averaged like 2 less points than him. And if you go look at the games, he guarded Kyrie. He held Kyrie Irving to like under 15 points, like 3 or 4 games. Like that is the difference, in my opinion. Like Kyrie also scored a shit ton. He was amazing offensively. I think he even had more steals. I have to go look that up. Their shooting percentages were essentially the same. Kyrie shot a way better free throw percentage, like by 15 points percentage difference. But if you go look up Curry's stats, like Irving shut him down like 3 or 4 games. And we're talking about the time like that was the entire motor of the Golden State offense. I just think Kyrie deserves way more credit for that finals win. I thought he should have been MVP when you throw in the defense.
Didn't he hit the game-winning shot?
Yep, and he hit the game-winning shot, bailed LeBron out again. Ray Allen bailed him out. Irving bailed him out. Wade bailed him out.
Dude, yeah, Ray Allen against the Spurs. Wait, was it against the Spurs? Is that what you're talking about on the Heat?
That was the year they beat the Heat. As a Game 6, he hit that shot, and then they go on to win Game 7.
Yeah. Damn.
LeBum James. He's a good guy, though. Like, as much as I hate him, like, he's off the court. He's, like, in no scandals or any. I don't really agree with a lot of his stuff that he's. Or I think he should kind of tone it down a little bit. But, like, have you seen the memes of him reading books? And it's always on the first page. Like, every time he's with the book, it's like, chapter 1. Like, it's funny as shit. But, like, he's never had a scandal or anything. Like, been with the same woman and shit. He's a good dad, Like, he's. As much as I hate him, like I respect him.
Kobe won an Oscar, and then LeBron made Space Jam 2. So
what did Kobe win an Oscar in?
Best animated short. It was like his first year even trying.
What did he
Oscar
make?
For best, some like basketball like thing. Like, let's see, Kobe
an
Bryant
animated
Oscar.
short.
Yeah.
Well, like he didn't make it. His company
called
made it.
Dear Basketball.
Or like he narrated it or something.
I mean, I remember he got the award.
That's crazy, dude. Absolute goat.
Dude, for real. And I think LeBron also failed on a remake of House Party as well.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the second Space Jam yet. I refuse to see it. Kind of like the last Matrix video.
Yeah,
I just refuse.
Good call on that one.
The last Matrix one?
No, well, yeah, I know. I stopped watching it like 20 minutes into that one, but
really.
Dude, yeah, 20 or 30 minutes. Like, I was like, what? This was so boring. I think I texted you. I was like, I'm not. It was 30 minutes in, and you were like, yeah, I'm not even going to watch it.
Dang. Yeah, I'm not going to let it sour the series for me.
It does, like, immediately. I don't know. Maybe Ren has watched all of it, but.
Oh, yeah. Heyman said he also tried to copyright Taco Tuesday. LeBron did. I think that's a new one, yeah.
We need. Oh, man. Once we get, like, a ton followers, we need to just start a stream and just like get all the reasons you hate LeBron and just read them off. Taco Tuesday, remaking House Party, Space Jam.
I don't hate him. He's just like he's such an unlikable guy.
Him for doing. Yeah.
It's not that I hate him. He just makes it so hard to like him.
Yeah, like staying healthy all the time when you want him to get hurt.
Did you see when we talked about him doing roids on that live stream I was doing?
I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying you believe he probably does?
Yeah. So I think over 50% or more of like professional athletes, I think in my opinion, probably take something, right? Like roids don't have to be like big and bulky and lift, bench 315 or whatever. Like Lance Armstrong, right? It's called EPOs, essentially, like increase your red blood cell count, and your endurance and cardio like goes through the roof. Like that's probably what a lot of basketball players take, I think. Dude, think about it. 82 games, back-to-backs. These guys are like 30, 35 years old. I'm not saying like I'm trying to compare what I can do, right, as at that age and trying to use that as a litmus test, but man, that's just grueling, dude. And like to play with such energy all the time, like they probably definitely think about Adderall, right? Like something like Adderall. Like that's the low end of what I think people probably take.
I kind of like the way that NFL just kind of their general mindset of like, it's like, sure, you can take it, but it's not going to make you like that much better. Like everyone in here is fast and run. Like you need to have that separate thing of like that little thing that separates you of you're either smarter or like you are just naturally more gifted and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Nobody really comes out and says, oh, so-and-so was test. Like I'm sure Rodney Harrison's going to be in the Hall of Fame, or if he's already not.
Yeah. And I also think, like, for sure, off-season or, like, when you're injured, you know how Andy Pettitte got in trouble when he was injured and recovering? I think for sure, like, when players maybe get a little more desperate or they're getting a little older, man, that's a huge temptation if you're making millions of dollars and you're a good player. Like, that's just a hard thing for the average person, I think, to turn down. And you just got to think about it like odds, right? Like, you're telling me if you're a professional athlete, someone comes up to you and says, like, first of all, the testing is shitty, right? Like, I would think the vast majority of them know how to get around it or know when to take it or know when it's coming. You're going to tell me you're not going to take a little, like, risk to be 10, 15, 20% better? Like, I just think that's a big temptation that I think a lot of guys take. And I don't necessarily blame them or anything.
Yeah, if you've already been paid and they can't touch that money, and the downside is you go back to just being what you normally are, and the upside is you're just like, you're recovering faster and all that stuff, then why not? Because if they bust you, then you're just like, well, then let's go back to this baseline where I'm already making pretty good money. And I mean, in basketball, it's not going to make that, especially in today's game, it's literally just for being able to get out there and play on like the grueling schedule. Like you said, maybe in the 90s, you could like make yourself into an Oakley or work your way into a Ben Wallace, right? But even then, you have to work your absolute ass off to have no offensive skill. And like for Ben Wallace to start is probably the craziest thing that's happened in the NBA because that guy couldn't shoot a free throw. Every time he took a shot, it was like talked about for the next 3 minutes on the broadcast of how bad it was. And like, oh my God, why was he even shooting it if it wasn't a dunk? Like, it was hilarious that he was like, and he was like an all-star defensive player of the year.
He was three-time defensive player of the year, dude.
I think Elijah only won it too. Only won 2 times.
Yeah.
And it's named after him.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think a lot of guys take stuff. I just think the risk is worth the reward, right? You remember that guy, Warren, who came over to your house?
Yeah.
Who was like, he was on a summer team for a while, and he ended up playing like overseas. So did his brother. And he said, like, they even say it now, like, everyone smokes weed, dude. Like, but there's not a lot of people getting busted, though. You know what I mean? So, like, to think that you could take weed, which stays in your system for a month, but you wouldn't take PEDs, which some are out in your system in a week, depending, or even if it's an oral, right? Like, it'll be out of your system in 3 or 4 days, tops. Like, it's just hard to not see the risk-reward for some guys, especially if they have, like, an expert who's telling them everything about the timing and how to get around tests and all that stuff, and you get a guy whispering in your ear like that. Just think it's a really hard temptation to pass up.
For sure.
All right. Well, I'll put the poll up. I'm sure I'll win.
All right.
All right, is that it?
Good one.